The Reckoning. The stars shimmered like scattered diamonds against the vast emptiness of space. Captain Ilara Chen stood motionless on the bridge of the U.S. Avalon, her eyes fixed on the tactical display where 27 hostile ships hung in formation. The Krell Collective had the Avalon surrounded, their biological-mechanical hybrid vessels arranged in their infamous Death Blossom configuration. Under normal circumstances, this would be a death sentence. The Krell had never lost a battle when deploying this formation. In the 6 years since humanity's first contact with the Collective, they had lost 17 colonies and over 30 ships to these relentless aggressors. But these were not normal circumstances. "They're hailing us, Captain," Lieutenant Quan reported from the communications station, his voice steady despite the tension gripping the bridge. Ilara nodded, her short black hair catching the blue glow of the tactical displays. On screen, the main view screen flickered, revealing the face of Overlord Zex Thrall. Like all Krell, his skin was a mottled gray-green, with cybernetic implants protruding from his skull and jawline. 4 pupilless eyes blinked independently as he assessed the humans before him. "Captain Chen," Zex Thrall's voice reverberated with the metallic undertone characteristic of his species. "Your vessel has violated Krell-claimed territory. Your colonies have defied our right to expand. Your existence offends the Collective." Ilara didn't flinch. She'd heard variations of this speech before. The Krell believed themselves to be the pinnacle of evolution, a perfect blend of biology and technology with a divine mandate to purify the galaxy. "Overlord," Ilara replied, her voice calm and measured. "We've attempted diplomatic solutions 17 times. You've rejected every offer. You've slaughtered civilians on worlds that were never yours to claim." She paused, letting her words hang in the vacuum between them. "Today that ends." Zex Thrall's upper eyes narrowed while his lower pair widened, a Krell expression of amusement. "Your single vessel against our armada. Your species' arrogance continues to astound me." Ilara glanced at her first officer, Commander Jackson Reed, who gave her a subtle nod. They had waited 3 years for this moment. 3 years of research, development, sacrifice, and secrecy. "This is your only warning, Overlord," Ilara said. "Withdraw your forces from human space immediately." The Krell leader's cybernetic implants flashed as he laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "You will be harvested for parts, Captain. Your crew will serve as biological components for our next generation of hybrid ships. Your defiance is..." Ilara cut the transmission with a gesture. The bridge fell silent. "All stations, report," she commanded. "Shields at maximum," called out Lieutenant Rivera from Tactical. "Engineering reports NOVA drive at full capacity," added Reed, his dark eyes reflecting the blue glow of his console. "Phase shift targeting system locked on all 27 vessels," confirmed Lieutenant Commander Hiroshi from Weapons Control, his fingers dancing across his console. Ilara took a deep breath. The weight of this moment pressed down on her shoulders like a physical force. What they were about to do would change the course of human history, perhaps all history in the known galaxy. "Initiate NOVA protocol," she ordered. Deep within the Avalon's core, something extraordinary happened. The experimental NOVA drive, Neuro-Organic Velocity Accelerator, hummed to life. It wasn't merely an engine. It was a revolution. Designed by Dr. Amara Singh after reverse engineering fragments of an ancient alien vessel found buried on Mars, the drive didn't just move the ship through space. It moved space around the ship. And it could do much more than that. The lights on the bridge dimmed momentarily as power surged through the vessel. On the view screen, the Krell ships began to move, breaking their formation as they prepared to attack. They were too late. "No VA field stabilize," Reed reported, his voice tight with concentration. "Quantum entanglement achieved." Ilara nodded. "Activate the Weaver." Outside the ship, space itself began to distort. The Avalon didn't fire conventional weapons. No torpedoes, no energy beams, no projectiles of any kind. Instead, the fabric of reality around the Krell vessels began to warp and twist. The NOVA drive wasn't just a propulsion system. It was humanity's first true manipulation of the quantum field itself. On the view screen, the crew watched in awe as 3 Krell vessels suddenly lost structural integrity, their hulls collapsing as if crushed by invisible hands. 5 more spun out of control, their navigation systems corrupted by quantum interference. The remaining ships fired desperately, but their weapons dissipated harmlessly in the distorted space surrounding the Avalon. "My God," breathed Quan. "It actually works." In the span of 45 seconds, without firing a single conventional weapon, the Avalon had neutralized 8 Krell warships. The remaining vessels hung motionless, clearly disoriented by what had just happened. The communication system chimed urgently. "They're hailing us again, Captain," Quan reported. Ilara straightened her uniform. On screen, Zexthral's face appeared once more, but the arrogance was gone. For the first time in recorded history, a Krell overlord showed fear. What have you done?" he demanded, his voice fluctuating between frequencies. "We've evolved," Ilara replied simply. "This is the Weaver system. It doesn't destroy ships. It rewrites the quantum probability of their existence. We can unravel your molecular cohesion, scramble your neural networks, or simply erase your ships from reality altogether." The Overlord's 4 eyes blinked rapidly as he processed this information. "This technology, it's impossible. And yet, here we are," Ilara said. "Now I'll repeat my offer. Withdraw from human space immediately. All of it. And we can discuss terms for peaceful coexistence." For several long moments, Zexthral was silent. His cybernetic implants flashed as he presumably communicated with the other ships in his fleet. "We will withdraw," he finally said, each word seeming to cause him physical pain. Ilara nodded. "A wise decision. Be aware that the Avalon isn't our only ship equipped with this technology. If you violate our borders again, we won't be as merciful." This was a bluff. The Avalon was indeed the only ship with the NOVA drive, at least for now. But the Krell didn't need to know that. As the Krell ships began their retreat, the bridge crew remained tense. Only when the last enemy vessel had disappeared from their sensors did they allow themselves to breathe normally again. "Send a message to Earth Command," Ilara ordered. "Operation Watershed is a success." Reed approached her, lowering his voice. "That was one hell of a gamble, Captain. We weren't entirely sure the Weaver would work on this scale." Ilara nodded, feeling the adrenaline finally beginning to ebb from her system. "It was necessary. The collective has been pushing deeper into our territory every month. If we hadn't stopped them here." Her words trailed off as a sudden alarm blared from Lieutenant Hiroshi's station. "Captain," he called out, his voice tight with concern. "We're detecting unusual energy readings from the Weaver." Ilara frowned. "Specify." "The quantum field isn't stabilizing as expected," Hiroshi reported, his fingers flying across his console. "It's expanding." Dr. Singh's voice came over the comm system from engineering, her Indian accent more pronounced under stress. "Captain, the NOVA drive is exhibiting unexpected behavior. The entanglement effect isn't dissipating. It's growing stronger. I recommend immediate shutdown." Before Ilara could respond, the ship shuddered violently. Warning lights flashed across every console on the bridge. "What's happening?" Ilara demanded, gripping her chair as the deck plates seemed to shift beneath her feet. Dr. Singh's voice came back, tinged with disbelief. "Captain, the quantum field it's opening something. I don't understand the readings. It's like we've torn a hole in reality itself." On the view screen, space twisted and distorted, forming what looked like a massive whirlpool of darkness directly ahead of the Avalon. At its center was nothing. Not stars, not emptiness, but an absence more profound than either. "All stop," Ilara ordered. "Disengage the NOVA drive." "The shutdown sequence isn't responding," Reed reported, his usual calm demeanor cracking. The field is self-sustaining now. The ship lurched forward, drawn inexorably toward the spatial anomaly they had inadvertently created. All hands, brace for impact. Ilara shouted as the Avalon was pulled into the swirling darkness. The bridge lights flickered and died, plunging the crew into momentary darkness before emergency systems activated. The ship groaned like a living thing in pain as it was stretched and compressed simultaneously. Then, as suddenly as it had begun, everything stopped. The view screen showed stars again, but they were arranged in unfamiliar patterns. "Status report," Ilara commanded, her voice cutting through the stunned silence. "All systems coming back online," Reed responded, studying his console. "Minor injuries reported on decks 3 and 4. No casualties." Navigation. Ilara turned to Lieutenant Rivera. The young officer looked up, her face pale. "Captain, I don't recognize any of these star patterns. According to our stellar cartography, we're not in charted space anymore." Ilara stared at the view screen, taking in the unfamiliar constellations. The victory against the Krell suddenly seemed small compared to what they'd just stumbled into. "Dr. Singh," she called over the comm. "I need answers. What just happened to my ship?" There was a moment of silence before the scientist's shaken voice replied. "Captain, I believe we've just discovered, or perhaps created, the galaxy's first artificial wormhole." As the implications of those words sank in, Ilara realized that defeating the Krell might have been just the beginning of humanity's greatest challenge yet. The awakening. 3 days had passed since the U.S. Avalon had torn a hole through space-time and emerged in an uncharted region of the galaxy. 3 days of diagnostics, repairs, and increasingly troubling discoveries. Captain Ilara Chen stood in the observation lounge, staring out at the unfamiliar stars. The ship had suffered minimal damage during their unexpected journey, but the NOVA drive remained offline, its quantum matrix in a state of flux that Dr. Singh and her team couldn't stabilize. The door hissed open behind her, and Commander Reed entered with a data tablet in hand. "You should see this, Captain," he said without preamble. Ilara turned, noting the concerned expression on her first officer's face. "What is it?" Reed handed her the tablet. "We've completed our stellar mapping. We're approximately 15,000 light-years from Earth, in what should be Krell territory." Ilara frowned. "Should be." "That's just it," Reed continued. "We've identified several star systems that match our charts of Krell space, but there's something wrong. Long-range scans show no Krell activity. None. Systems that should have their installations, their colonies, they're either abandoned or what?" Ilara pressed. Reed hesitated. "Or they show signs of massive destruction. Not battle damage, something more fundamental. Like the planets themselves were unraveled." A chill ran down Ilara's spine as she recalled the effects of the Weaver system on the Krell ships. Could our technology have caused this? "Dr. Singh doesn't think so," Reed replied. "The scale is too vast, and some of these events appear to have happened years ago, according to the radiation signatures." Before Ilara could respond, Lieutenant Kwan's voice came over the comm system. "Captain, to the bridge. We're detecting an approaching vessel." Ilara and Reed exchanged glances before hurrying to the bridge. As they entered, the main view screen showed a sleek, silver ship approaching at high speed. "Configuration?" Ilara asked, taking her seat. Hiroshi shook his head. "Unknown, Captain. It doesn't match any design in our database." "They're hailing us," Kwan reported. "On screen," Ilara ordered, straightening in her chair. The view screen flickered, and the bridge crew collectively gasped. The being on the screen was humanoid but clearly alien, tall and slender with luminescent skin that seemed to shift colors like an aurora. Its eyes were large, completely black, and without pupils. "Terran vessel," the being spoke, its voice melodious yet somehow unsettling. "You have entered protected space. Identify yourselves and state your purpose." Ilara recovered quickly from her surprise. I am Captain Ilara Chen of the United Earth vessel Avalon. Our arrival here was unintentional, the result of an experimental drive malfunction. We mean no hostility. The alien studied her for a moment. I am Sentinel Thalin of the Veil Protectorate. Your vessel, it bears the energy signature of the Unravelers. Ilara glanced at Reed, confused. I'm not familiar with that term. The alien skin darkened slightly. The ones you call the Krell Collective. They were not always as you know them. Once, they were the guardians of this sector, until they discovered the quantum weaving technology. A shock ran through Ilara. You're saying the Krell had the same technology as our NOVA drive? Not the same, Thalin corrected. An earlier, more primitive version. They called it the unraveling. It began as a weapon, became a religion, and ended as madness. The aliens' expression shifted to something unreadable. They believed they could rewrite reality itself, become gods of a new universe fashioned to their design. What happened to them? Reed asked. Thalin's skin rippled with dark patterns. They fractured space too many times, tore too many holes between realities. Something noticed. Something came through. Silence fell over the bridge as the implications sank in. Captain, Dr. Singh's voice suddenly came over the comm. I'm detecting unusual energy readings from the NOVA drive. It's activating on its own. Before Ilara could respond, the ship's lights flickered and a low humming filled the bridge. On the view screen, Thalin's expression changed to alarm. You must shut down your quantum technology immediately. It acts as a beacon. A beacon for what? Ilara demanded, even as she ordered, engineering. Emergency shutdown of the NOVA drive. For them, Thalin replied, true fear evident in his voice now. The Voidborn, entities that exist between realities. The Krell awakened them, and they consumed entire systems before we could establish the containment perimeter. The ship shuddered violently, throwing several crew members from their stations. No VA drive power levels spiking, Hiroshi reported, his voice tight with panic. Something's interfering with the shutdown sequence. On the view screen, Thalin was barking orders to unseen crew members on his own vessel. Your drive is creating a resonance cascade. It's opening another gateway. We must stabilize it before. The transmission abruptly cut out as the view screen filled with static. When it cleared, the sight before them defied comprehension. Space itself seemed to be folding inward, creating a vortex of absolute darkness. But this wasn't like the wormhole they had inadvertently created days earlier. This darkness had texture, had depth, had awareness. What am I looking at? Ilara whispered. Reed's voice was barely audible. I think it's looking back at us. From the swirling void, something began to emerge. Not a ship, not a creature in any conventional sense, but a shifting mass of angles and geometries that hurt the human mind to perceive directly. Alarms blared across the bridge as systems began to fail one after another. Multiple hull breaches, Rivera shouted. But there's no depressurization. It's like the breaches aren't in our physical hull, but somewhere else. Dr. Singh's voice cut through the chaos. Captain, the quantum field is destabilizing. The Weaver system is trying to engage automatically. I think it's reacting to the anomaly. A sudden clarity came to Ilara. The NOVA drive wasn't malfunctioning. It was defending itself, defending the ship. Dr. Singh, she called out, don't fight it. Let the NOVA drive do what it's trying to do. Captain, Singh's shocked voice came back. That could tear the ship apart. If we do nothing, whatever that thing is will tear us apart anyway. Ilara countered. Trust me. After a moment's hesitation, Singh replied, removing the safeties now. No VA drive engaging at full power. The ship vibrated as energy surged through it. On the view screen, the darkness seemed to recoil as the quantum field generated by the NOVA drive expanded outward. Thalin's ship reappeared, moving to position itself alongside the Avalon. His transmission cut back in mid-sentence. Joining our quantum fields with yours. The resonance might be enough to close the breach. The two ships, human and alien, focused their technologies together against the encroaching void. For several tense moments, it seemed as though they would fail. The darkness continued to spread, tendrils of impossible geometry reaching toward both vessels. Then something changed. The combined quantum fields began to pulsate in a synchronized pattern, creating a wall of warped space-time that pushed against the void. "It's working," Hiroshi exclaimed. "The anomaly is receding." With a final surge of power from both ships, the breach collapsed in on itself, leaving only the stars behind. The bridge crew sat in stunned silence, processing what they had just witnessed. Ilara took a deep breath, steadying herself before turning to the view screen where Thalin's face had reappeared. "I believe we have much to discuss, Sentinel," she said. Thalin nodded solemnly. "Indeed, Captain Chen. Your arrival may be more significant than either of us initially realized." Hours later, in the Avalon's conference room, Ilara sat across from Thalin, who had transported aboard along with two of his science specialists. They had spent the last 3 hours exchanging information about the Voidborn, the Krell, and humanity's development of the NOVA drive. "So the Krell we encountered, the collective, are just a fraction of their original civilization?" Ilara asked, trying to piece together the history. "Yes," Thalin confirmed. "When their experiments went catastrophically wrong, the Krell split into factions. Some sought to continue their work, believing they could master the technology. Others fled, abandoning their quantum research entirely. The group you call the Collective are those who embraced cybernetics as an alternative path to evolution, rejecting their past failures. That explains why they never used similar technology against us," Reed mused. "They're afraid of it." "With good reason," Thalin said gravely. "The Voidborn have consumed dozens of systems. The Protectorate has managed to contain them within this sector, but our resources are stretched thin." Dr. Singh, who had joined the meeting, leaned forward. "Yet our NOVA drive didn't just attract them. It repelled them when combined with your technology." Thalin's skin rippled with patterns of blue and gold, a sign of excitement Ilara had learned. "Yes, your approach to quantum manipulation is fundamentally different from the Krell's. They sought to tear reality. You bend it. The resonance created when our technologies merged actually sealed the breach instead of widening it." "This changes everything," Ilara said quietly. "Not just our conflict with the Krell, but our understanding of the universe itself." "Indeed," Thalin agreed, "which is why I am authorized to offer an alliance between the Veil Protectorate and your united Earth. Together, we might not only contain the Voidborn, but perhaps find a way to banish them completely." "And the Krell?" Reed asked. Thalin's expression grew somber. "They must be made to understand. Their aggression against your species stems from fear. Fear that humans might repeat their mistakes. Now that you have developed similar technology independently, they will be even more determined to destroy you." Ilara nodded slowly, the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders. What had begun as a military mission to defend human colonies had transformed into something far more significant, a potential turning point for multiple civilizations. "I'll need to consult with Earth Command," she said finally. "But speaking personally, I believe this alliance is not just beneficial, it's necessary." Thalin inclined his head. "Until then, we offer our assistance in stabilizing your NOVA drive and returning your ship to Earth space. The journey ahead will not be easy, Captain Chen. The Voidborn are drawn to quantum disturbances, and your ship now emits a signature they can detect." "You're saying we'll be hunted," Ilara stated. "Yes," Thalin confirmed, "but you will not face them alone." As the meeting concluded and preparations began for the journey home, Ilara returned to the observation lounge. The stars looked different to her now, not just unfamiliar in their configuration, but somehow more mysterious, more dangerous. Humanity had created a warship so advanced that it had forced the dreaded Krell Collective to retreat without a fight. They had unlocked the power to bend space and time itself. But in doing so, they had stumbled into a conflict older and more terrifying than they could have imagined. The irony wasn't lost on Ilara. The Avalon had been built to ensure humanity's survival against the Krell. Now it might be the key to saving multiple species, perhaps even the Krell themselves, from a threat that transcended conventional understanding. As her ship prepared to embark on its perilous journey home, Captain Ilara Chen realized that the true test of humanity's worth wouldn't be found in their ability to build superior weapons, but in how they chose to use the power they had discovered. Sometimes, the greatest victory wasn't in making your enemies surrender or flee. It was in transforming them into allies against a common darkness. And that was a battle that had only just begun.